We all wish we could be more like Marty Short. And the fact that he is being rewarded for being that person, for having more and more success. I mean, he's 3,000 years old, but he's hotter than ever. It's unbelievable.
Hello and welcome to the Not Ready for Primetime Project. We're Gary Seath and Brad Robinson.
And you're not.
Brad, this week on My SNL Story, we have a very special guest.
We do. Today's guest has had a storied career. He's won a Tony, 2 Grammys, 2 Emmys, and has got 7 Oscar nominations. And I believe we now can say he's also a New York Times bestselling author. He began his career as a mere teenager, just a few years removed from hanging Bette Midler's posters up in his New Jersey bedroom. Not only would he be playing with Bette Midler, but living with her. From there, he's enjoyed a 40-plus year career of success practically in every aspect of entertainment, music, television, Broadway film, you name it. He's responsible for Broadway hits like Hairspray, which won him the Tony, Catch Me If You Can, Some Like It Hot, and most recently last year's Smash. His film resume is longer than we have time for. He's contributed to over 50 movies, including his Oscar-nominated work for Sleepless in Seattle, American President, The First Wives Club, Patch Adams, South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, and Mary Poppins Returns, which he got 2 nominations for. There's an endless list of people he's collaborated with, from Bette Midler and Billy Crystal, Rob Reiner, Martin Short, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Raquel Welch, Harry Connick Jr., and even Mariah Carey. But what we are most excited to talk to him about today is his time on Saturday Night Live. Wedged in there back in the beginning of his career, he began as a freelance performer during the Dick Ebersol years and then was brought on full-time when Lorne Michaels came back to the show. And it's during that time that his work on the show is most well-known, primarily as a vital part of one of the most iconic recurring characters from SNL's second golden era, the Sweeney Sisters. All of this and so much more is in his fantastic new book, Never Mind the Happy, Showbiz Stories From a Sore Winner. We are beyond excited to talk to Marc Shaiman today. Hey, Marc.
Hello. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks for joining us, Marc. This is a real pleasure for us. We like to start every one of these shows with the same question for every guest. So I'll start with, when did you first hear of Saturday Night Live?
I had just moved to New York. I was 16 years old. Maybe I had turned 17 by then. You probably could. It was when Billy Joel was on. And he did, Don't Go Changing. And I remember I was at a party where people were moving over to the TV to watch. And even then I remember, like, this is odd that on a Saturday night, people are congregating around a TV. Actually, I'm not sure if that was the Billy Joel episode. I'm conflating it with another moment where I was in a cab with someone and Howard Shore shared the cab. So I was friends with I don't remember why or how, but I was in a cab with Howard Shore after that Billy Joel, and he was talking about how on that record, it's like, I'm at a piano, you can tell, that every is on a keyboard, and that's how it creates all the backgrounds on that record. Not unlike the 10cc record, I'm not in love, uses the same thing. Anyway, man, we've gone off on a tangent here.
I love it.
So that was the era that, when I moved to New York, was 1976.
Okay.
But I would say the first friends I met in New York when I started playing for a comedy review, I was from New Jersey and I was 16 years old. I had gotten my high school diploma and I went to New York one day with some friends and ran into some other New Jersey friends. And we went into a little bar that was right there just to catch up with the friends. Although I was 16 years old, what was there to catch up on? But that happened to be a piano bar that's called Marie's Crisis that still exists, and it's just a legendary piano bar. We didn't know. It was just where we ran into our friends. But I started playing the piano. There was no one in there. It was like 4:30. And the bartender, this was the beginning of my fairy tale existence, where the bartender sweeping up said, wait, kid, you're good. There's people next door who need a funnier piano player than they have. And they came in and they said, can you play Together Wherever We Go, which is from Gypsy, which is usually played in this style. And they said, no, can you play it cheesy? And I was like, you mean wherever we go? Yeah, wherever we do. The reason I bring up this story, and I got the job playing piano for them, is because it was the beginning of that ironic showbiz comedy. that Bill Murray so perfectly symbolized with his Nick character.
Mhm.
I had not known anyone in New Jersey who I could make that kind of joke about that certain kind of cheesy show business. It's unfortunate that
Right.
show business ventured into that kind of, when Stephen Eady would be on the Merv Griffin show and would cheese up existing pop songs. I say it's a shame because I love show business. I love the great golden era of show business, and hate that for some people it became just cheesy. But anyway, Bill Murray really nailed that. And I had that same kind of sense of humor. So that's how I started making a name for myself in New York and cabaret comedy circles, and finally then started getting the call to work freelance up at SNL. You might have been wondering how I was going to finally get to SNL with that rambling story, but
No.
that was it.
And how did you get that call to get on SNL? In the book, you mentioned Tom Malone. Is he the one who reached out?
No, it was because this might have been who I was in the cab with. I was friends, a girl named Laura Kenyon was great friends with a woman named Cheryl Hardwick, who was, along with Paul Schaefer, the original keyboard players at the show. And she was doing that after the first golden 5 years. Cheryl, or I don't know if Paul ever got the call to come back and help with a musical idea, but Cheryl did.
Mm.
But Cheryl was a brilliant pianist. I mean, she is so brilliant. And she was just tired of it. She'd been there for 5 years. So we were traveling in the same friends. And she heard my work with cabaret acts in New York. The cabaret scene was exploding. And I was doing a lot of cabaret acts. And she heard my work there. I always remember once I was I was on stage at the piano, and I put the music are called charts, and I put it on the table behind me to do something, and Cheryl Hardwick in the audience yelled out, "Charts on fire," which is the Earth, Wind & Fire song. It's usually Hearts on Fire, but Cheryl yelled out, sure enough, I had placed my music on a candle. Anyway, that's my Cheryl Hardwick memory. And so she started giving them my name up at SNL. And that was the years of like Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Brad Hall and Tom Malone at that point was the musical director,
Right.
which was one of the great blessings of my life, not only to make friends with Tom Malone, who's such a wonderful guy, but he is a savant. He can play every instrument on earth, but he's not a funny Jewish guy who plays the piano.
Right.
He doesn't play the piano. He very well may be uncircumcised for all we know. So, and you can't have a comedy show without a funny Jew at the piano. It's a law.
No, they tapped that well very often the first 5
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
So I started getting those calls and worked there a little bit. And then the second year, I guess, I started getting those calls was the year of Billy Crystal and Martin Short and Christopher Guest. This one great year that never gets reran. I wonder why. And, for us, it was just, oh my God, I made such good friends with them. Literally right now, texting with Billy this morning, texting with Marty yesterday. I mean, still my best friends. And it all grew out of sitting in that music room, laughing at the world, laughing at everything, every now and then getting something on the air, but for the most part, just laughing amongst ourselves.
Let's just talk about those freelance years real briefly. What were some of the bits that you did and songs that you wrote during those years?
Not much that you'd remember. I mean, you guys, there is that person online, SNL Reels with a Z.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she somehow has every sketch and puts it on there, and it doesn't get taken off. I hope I'm not getting them in trouble by mentioning that she has thousands and thousands of viewers. I write to her now and say, do you have this? Sure enough, she does. I have one distinct memory of having to recreate Nelson Riddle's orchestration for What's New when Linda Ronstadt's album came out.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole sketch is just Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Linda Ronstadt singing lyrics that someone up there wrote, and I was just called up there to arrange and orchestrate it. It was very Mad Magazine. It was about like, well, when you've run out of things to do in your career, here's, don't do what's new or something. What's new or don't, I forget. Meanwhile, Linda Ronstadt had the last laugh with the biggest successes of her careers with those records. So that was my first thing, remembering how to transcribe the orchestration and adapt that with Tom Malone to the existing SNL band. At that point, they used to pre-record all the music for the shows. A live band was there, but almost every single piece of music used in the show was pre-recorded. I don't know why. It's a live show, but...
Right. That was going to be my follow-up question, but you don't know. So.
Just the ease. There was a live
Sure.
band there. I did play some things live in those years, but that was my first memory, is doing that Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I couldn't believe I saw her at the 50th anniversary, and she said hi to me, and I was like, "You remember me?" And I think she was sincere. She was like, "Of course I remember you." I don't know if she's seen me over the years in show business. We have never worked with each other again, but she was as sweet as can be.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Speaking of funny Jews on piano, Bill Murray came back to host, and you were the only person other than Paul Schaefer to back him up on a Nick the Lounge Singer sketch.
I know. I can't remember if I tell that story in the book.
You do.
That was when I was full time. After I've been brought back, and I was hired to literally be a writer. Writers Guild. I had to join the Writers Guild, and I had to go down to like the 7th floor and go to a woman behind a glass window with a little opening at the bottom. I had never had a real job like that where someone passed me a paycheck on Friday. Yeah, so Bill Murray came back. And of course, everyone thought, well, Bill Murray's lounge act should do something with the Sweeney Sisters. But the girls were like, oh, we don't think our act is like Bill Murray's thing. Anyway, it didn't happen which would have been great. But Bill Murray was like, yeah, let's do it. And Paul Schaefer wasn't around. I mean, he would have come back and done it. I'm sure he was just busy somewhere, I guess. I couldn't believe I was going to play for Nick the Lounge Singer. But Bill Murray didn't like to rehearse. So the sketch had been written. It was in a prison. We had the songs worked out. We had it pretty much worked out, but not worked out in the way that I wanted to. I'm all for improvisation, but it is live TV. So at the dress rehearsal, Bill was in a sketch. I think that it made it to the air, but at the dress rehearsal, which didn't make it to the air, he was playing Samson or Hercules. I can't remember.
Hercules, yeah.
But an out of shape Hercules. And at the dress rehearsal, they had him outfitted with fake male tits, funny sagging male tits. And at that point, I was beside myself trying to get him to rehearse and just sort of say, are we going to go from this to that? Or how much of that song are we going to do? I mean, I was really like, help, and I was chasing him. I have such distinct memory I'll never forget of chasing him under the bleachers with his sagging man tits. And me going, Bill, please, what are we going to do? And if you watch the scene, you can sort of see me at the live show glowering just a little bit. Like, I'm not quite as happy as I ought to be at the piano. Because,
it's not that bad.
Yeah, I've watched it. My memory, I'm glowering inside. I didn't show it as much as I thought I did.
You wrote about it in the book, so I went back to find the sketch to watch it, and I was oh, it's not that bad. He's not glowering that much at him. Just to backtrack a second, you did those first 2 seasons freelance. You just kind of gloss over it in the book. Did you do anything that first season Lorne came back, that season 11, or were you away that whole year?
No, not at all. No,
okay.
No. Yeah, that was, I think he really tried to, it was a clean slate. Whatever. No, I didn't get that call at all. But the following year, one of the co-producers of the show, Dinah Minot, Minot, she somehow heard about me, I guess through Cheryl Hardwick and the fact that I had done the freelance work already, and hired me full time. But as I write the book, I didn't quite fit in working there full time. And it was the only time in my life, I knock wood, that I actually felt that those tall Ivy League white guys, I felt like they looked at me as the fag down the hall. Like they didn't want to have anything to do with me or music. Leave it to me. I mean, even though I've had such a blessed life and career that I write about in the book and the audiobook, leave it to me to work at SNL when they didn't like music. Now there is music in every sketch. Every host has an opening number. There's that a new pop song video in every. There's so much music. People really embraced it. But I worked there where it was so poo-pooed upon. And when we came up with the Sweeney Sisters, anytime a new Sweeney Sisters sketch came up, I could see those Ivy League guys rolling their eyes. Oh, God. Not another one of those Sweeney Sisters sketches. And thank God those girls knocked on my door, because I was intimidating by those guys. They were very intimidating. And although I have a whole life that I've written about where I have such chutzpah that I really have no trouble fighting for myself and raising my hand and wanting to do something and getting to do it. But those guys just were impenetrable.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Sweeney Sisters. How did that come about? They came to you?
There was a married couple up there, the Turners, Bonnie and Terry Turner. They created Third Rock from the Sun, and they had worked with Jan Hooks, I believe, in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe Bonnie, the wife of that married couple, had actually done an act with Jan that was like the Sweeney Sisters. And so they thought, hey, let's do this on the show. And they said, well, Nora will take the place of Bonnie that Bonnie used to do when they did this in some comedy club down in Atlanta. And lo and behold, they knocked on my music. I had a little office, smaller than this little room I'm in right now. And they said, hey, we have this idea for these two lounge singing, non sequitur medley girls who think they're more talented maybe than they are. Would you be interested? Can you help us? And I was like, can I? I say in the book, I would have run to the piano if my room wasn't so small that I was already seated at the piano. But it was like, finally, like, oh, yes, 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 yes. And the first medley we did is just total non sequiturs. There's no theme to them. They're on a cable TV show, and it's just on a blank black box stage. But enough people seem to have liked it. And then we all got together again a few weeks later. And from that point on, wherever they were playing became the thematic foundation for the medley. Mm-hmm. So like when they're at a ski resort and Paul Simon comes to see them. Mm-hmm. So then it became an endless. I'll never forget Jan Hooks screaming "Bridge Over Troubled Water" into Paul Simon's face.
We were just talking about that. Between that and the William Shatner one are the two favorites. But I love Jan Hooks just screaming "Bridge Over Troubled Water."
Troubled water. Yes, I remember.
Oh, it's so good.
There are some weeks I was working on Broadway at the time, and there are some weeks where Cheryl was called in to play for them. I would work out the medleys with the girls and the Turners. But then Cheryl, there's, I think, two, one with Robin Williams and one, I can't remember the other one, where I'm not there playing, which was bizarre. I can't even believe they let me do that. But I had a prior commitment that I had to be at. I can't believe they let me.
Well, one thing, Mark, I'm going to say you got wrong in your book is you talk about people don't know these characters and that they're really only fans of gay men and the women who love them.
Yeah.
But not true, sir. Saturday Night Live fans love the Sweeney Sisters, so don't sell yourself short.
I mostly just say that because they don't rerun them. and they're not on YouTube. Like they get ripped. Maybe things are changing. Luckily, the best one is on YouTube. That's the one with William Shatner, the Bell medley. Mm-hmm. That is, I think, was the best. I don't think I wrote it in the book. Maybe I did. That William Shatner show, which is so iconic. The sketches, the Star Trek sketch, and the fact that I had two things on that show. The opening that I wrote lyrics with Al Franken for new lyrics to the Ballad of the Green Beret about Oliver North. But William Shatner did a T.J. Hooker sketch where he was hanging onto a car in a comical way that no human could possibly hang onto the car. But they had the wind machine. It was in such a position that his toupee was flipping up. And I happened to be hanging around the studio, and I happened to be in the corner where I ran into the control room to say, Nick's on that camera. Get that camera away. Yeah, it was so funny. Bloop, bloop, moving up.
No.
These are my SNL memories. That's a big one. God. And also that same sketch, that was the first time that oh my God, I can't think of her name, who sued Trump and won the civil suit. Jean
Carroll?
E. Jean Carroll.
Yeah, E. Jean Carroll. That's
She was hired that year and couldn't get a sketch on. And she had put on that sketch that's on with William Shatner of a guy just flattering himself in front of the mirror, even though he does not have the body he acts. She had submitted that sketch and it finally got on that show. Anyway, just talking to you guys is making me remember all this stuff.
Oh my God.
good.
And if you really scramble and Google, you'll find the Emmy Awards, when Lorne produced the Emmy Awards in between those two seasons I worked.
You guys opened the Emmys, right?
Yes. And as I quote Paul Schaefer, oh yeah, you girls like to work long. You know, the Emmy Awards, it's too long. It was always too long. These medleys just went on a good minute too long, as did the Emmy Awards. But at the Emmy Awards, we got to perform the Mary Tyler Moore theme to Mary Tyler Moore, who couldn't have been more receptive. She's just beaming as the girls are singing to her. And when she came on that next season at the Monday night meeting, she was like, I'll do whatever you guys want. The only thing I insist on is to be in a Sweeney Sisters medley. Now, meanwhile, I grew up in the 70s. I mean, you know, I'm the same year as the end of the same age, the end of a year. So in 1972, I was 12, and 73, I was 30. So the Mary Tyler Moore Show, that's like part of my molecular structure. And to work with her and for her to demand to be part of the sketch. Oh, it was a thrill, an absolute thrill.
That's wonderful.
Do you remember how that came about? Did Lorne ask for Sweeney Sisters to open it up, or was it kind of a natural?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So Lorne knew. I mean, we were recurring characters. And even though those Ivy Leaguers didn't much care for it, Lorne knew, you know. I mean, at that point, isn't that weird how that really no longer exists, the striving for recurring characters, which was such a huge part of at least the first 40 years of SNL. So there, you know, so Lorne kind of knew, well, I guess these things always start with a musical number. It made sense for it to be the Sweeney Sisters. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a thrill. And the people in the audience are so unhappy. What has Nora done to say to Jack Lemmon? Jack Lemmon, hats off to a marvelous career. And you can see, like, you know, B. Arthur or Ed Asner, they're like, what the hell is this? As the girls are moving their way to the aisle. But Mary Tyler Moore, thank God, God bless her, she was radiant and enjoying it.
That's awesome.
You guys are too young probably to remember the Magilla Gorilla cartoon that was part of my youth.
Doesn't Nora sing that? One of them sings it in that medley.
It usually goes, we've got a gorilla for sale, a Magilla gorilla for sale. But Jan, in her brilliance, did it as a Barbra Streisand ballad. We've got a gorilla for sale. And at the end, gorilla for sale. Jan Hooks. I mean, there was no one more brilliant than Jan Hooks.
Can we talk about her?
Please.
I mean, she is absolutely amazing. What was your relationship with her like, and what was it like working with her?
I did bond with her. I mean, she has that same personality of me, of like, when is the other shoe gonna drop? And like, oh, nobody likes me. I mean, in my case up there, it really did seem to be true for a few months. It's not that they didn't like me, but they didn't like what I do. I don't know. And she kind of was a moper, I guess is the easiest way to put it. She would mope and I would mope. So we would mope together. And thank God that we had this success up there with the Sweeney Sisters, that we had that together and always had that together. I mean, no matter what. I mean, she was just so good. Anything they gave her, anything she came up with. But she was always unhappy. I mean, she sort of defined that kind of cliche of the comedy person laughing on the outside, crying on the inside, as opposed to someone like Martin Short, who is laughing on the inside and the outside. He is the exception to that rule. Jan Hooks at Marty Short. Marty Short used to have the greatest Christmas parties that were like what you fantasize if you were part of Hollywood in the heyday of golden age of Hollywood and MGM, where he would get up on the piano, a piano that he would make me push from his office out into the living room. to make it look like Mark is so stage starved. And then he would just, huff and puff as he just like moved the bench. And he would have these parties where people would perform. He would ask people if they wanted to perform. Some people would run into the kitchen. My partner, Scott Whitman, said sometimes it would look like we were putting on the Diary of Anne Frank when people would run into the kitchen and hide. But most people stayed in the living room, and those with courage would get up and perform. Because it's hard, with Marty Short being the MC singing, no one wants to be compared to that. But many did. Tom Hanks would get up every year and be so much more filthy and wonderfully nasty and gossipy than his persona is. I mean, it's not fake what his how people perceive him, but at a party, and especially after almost everyone left, we would have like the second half where it would get even more gossipy and more cutthroat. One year, Marty Short said, "Jan Hooks, come on up here." And she must have thought about it beforehand. He said, "Jan, what would you like to perform?" And she said very solemnly, "I would like to perform a monologue from To Kill a Mockingbird." And Marty was like, "Well, very well then, proceed." And she proceeded to do the entire, "I got something to say," the monologue of the girl who's accusing the black man of rape, even though it's a false accusation. And she proceeded to give the most incredible performance, like a 4-minute recreation of that moment on the stand, full out. And then it says, "And I ain't got nothing more to say." And then she flung herself to the ground. And you've never seen like Steven Spielberg and the types just all be like, "What did we just witness?" Like it's something you'd never seen at a Christmas party before or since. So that's a big Jan Hooks memory for her to like just be so different always, just a different take on not only what she performed but where she would perform it. That was so like her to do that.
I was going to bring that up because that's a great story in the book, the Jan Hooks at the Martin Short party. And it's an example, I think, of how the book is so well written, how I enjoy it. You tell that really kind of touching story about Jan Hooks kind of dropping her guard. And then you punctuate at the end with a Kenny G, Bernadette Peters joke, which is hilarious. It's just that kind of back and forth.
Well, so funny. Kenny G was there one year. Kenny G turned around, and from the back with his auburn curly locks, Marty Short, "Oh, look, Bernadette Peters is here."
So funny. So after your brief full-time stint on SNL, they still brought you back after, right? You were doing occasional Sweeney Sisters at times. Like you went back to freelance, right? After your full-time work?
Yeah. Unfortunately, as much as I remembered, I wrote a whole book. Can you believe it? Remembering all these things. And I swear, it's all honest. I didn't make up anything. But I can't quite remember if that second year was all freelance now and then, if they needed me or if I was going to be in New York. But that's when my movie career started happening. So I was in Los Angeles. So I would sometimes have to fly back if they wanted. And that Mary Tyler Moore moment might have been a moment where, the truth is, I can't remember. Mm-hmm. It's all a blur. It's all a big blur. And then, I'm just... pleased as punch. Did you? I don't write in the book about something that I just watched recently, because as I've been on TV now talking about the book, and I've said to people, like, this was my dream. I do write in the book when I first got an agent in Los Angeles when my movie career started happening, and he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I want to write movie scores, but I want to be like Paul Williams. I want to be a songwriter who's on a talk show telling stories. I want to be gay Marvin Hamlish." When I was growing up, I'm older than you guys, Paul Williams, who's a legendary songwriter of many songs, especially in the 70s, the Carpenters and for Barbra Streisand, he was also a ham. He would be on like the Dinah Shore show or the Merv Griffin show or the Mike Douglas show. These are names that many people might scratch their heads at. But there was a whole world. There was a man named Oscar Levant who used to be in a lot of movies in the 30s and 40s and 50s. He was George Gershwin's best friend. He was always the wisecracking piano sidekick. And there used to be a place in show business for a wisecracking piano sidekick. And that's what I wanted to be, as much as writing music and writing lyrics. I wanted to be on talk shows. I wanted to tell stories. So one year at Saturday Night Live, when I was working up there, Chevy Chase was the host. And you can Google this. It's called Channel Changer, where it's a sketch where Chevy Chase is the husband, Jan Hooks is the wife, and their teenage son is there. And it's about, hey, where's the channel changer? They're looking for it. So Chevy Chase puts his hand under the couch cushions and starts looking for it. And then the gag of the whole sketch is all the different things he keeps pulling out under the cushions. You know, first change and then more change. And then the bones of their cat. Oh, Fluffy. Here, son, she's going to need your love more than ever. And then eventually he pulls out a TV guide. He says, oh, look, it's an old TV guide with Paul Williams on the cover. And Jan Hooks, as the wife, said, whatever happened to Paul Williams? And when we read this sketch at this read-through, they were like, well, we got to get Paul Williams, because then the gag is that Chevy Chase reaches real far down and says, oh, here he is, and pulls Paul Williams out of the couch. They contacted Paul Williams, and for whatever reason, he either didn't want to do it or wasn't available to just suddenly fly to New York and be in the sketch. And I said, you know what? In junior high school, when I, had long blonde hair parted in the middle and, I got a thick nose, and besides wanting to be like Paul Williams, I also kind of looked like him. And he's a kind of gnomish looking hobbit kind of a person. And I was like, I don't know if necessarily wanted to look like Paul Williams, but I could play Paul Williams. So they were like, okay. So the only really non-Sweeney Sisters thing that a sketch that I'm in is Chevy Chase pulls me out of the couch as Paul Williams, and I have a few lines.
There is another one you might not remember because it was only a few sketches. Do you remember a sketch at all called Jungle Room? It was John Lovitz and Phil Hartman, but it was like in a nightclub setting. And so you were playing piano in a nightclub. I'm guessing you probably didn't write much. You were just in it to be the piano player. But
yeah. If there ever was a sketch that needed a piano player in it, I was always going to be the piano player. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a series of those. If you look it up, you can see you're in a few of those.
So they're doing their 1930s movie.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah,
shtick,
well,
yeah.
no, give it to me straight. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
And then Phil Hartman, the fact that I got to work with Phil Hartman, the sweetest. I will say, when I was feeling that feeling of not fitting in and do they even like me, he was always someone that said, come in my office, come sit, talk. He was just that kind of wonderful, wonderful guy. So sad.
Yeah.
So, oh my
Very
God.
sad.
On a lighter note.
Well, I was going to go back to a relationship that you mentioned earlier, but you still have this relationship with Marty Short. How did your relationship with him develop, and what was the work that you have done with him over the years?
Meeting at Saturday Night Live and just being in the room with Billy Crystal, Martin Short, and Christopher Guest. I'm lucky that I have a talent, and I also had the talent for comedy, so music and comedy. And so they just immediately accepted me as a kindred spirit, and that we made each other laugh. Making those guys laugh, there's no greater thrill. And Marty Short and Billy Crystal, right after that year, both made HBO comedy specials. And Marty Short made a brilliant one called I, Martin Short Goes Hollywood, on purposely, bad.
Right.
And I got to write songs with him with Eugene Levy and Paul Flaherty, and wrote and directed. I'm trying to remember. I think Eugene Levy directed, Paul Flaherty co-wrote, but everyone was working together.
Yeah.
Where we did like that, the man in the moon. I've often heard about the man in the moon, where he does a kind of Wizard of Oz. Not kind of. It's a spoof of the Tin Man character. Anyway, we would just laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. And that, is still to this day when I think of Marty and Billy, as I think of them often. And it's just endless laughter. And we've been through a lot of heartbreak as well, and tragedies. And, Marty is just the happiest man on earth. He has figured life out. I do tell in the book the story of how he was on with Kathy Lee and Hoda live television.
Yeah.
And Kathy Lee somehow just brought up a subject that wasn't in the notes, that no one had done research, and brought up his marriage to Nancy, not knowing that she had died of cancer maybe a year earlier.
Yeah.
And she says, you and Nancy have one of the all-time great showbiz marriages. How do you do it? How does a great marriage work in show business? And Marty had the Zen-like quality to continue to talk with her for like a minute or two, and found the way to use the tense, saying like, well, when you're married, you must think this and you must think of each other. He figured out a way to answer her question and never have the horrifying, humiliating moment it would have been for her on live TV to say, well, actually, Kathy Lee, my wife died last year, and you ought to talk to your research department before you ask that question. That is the level of Zen that he is at, where he was able to do that. And you could just always look to him to be able to lift himself over whatever is going on. And we all wish we could be more like Marty Short. And the fact that he is being rewarded for being that person, for having more and more success. I mean, he's 3,000 years old, but he's hotter than ever. It's unbelievable.
Speaking of Martin Short, one of the best parts, I would say, of the SNL 40th anniversary was the music montage or introduction he did with Maya Rudolph that you were involved with, right?
Yes. Imagine that thrill. Me, Maya Rudolph, Marty Short, and Fred Armisen in a room together. They all came over to my apartment. And once again, you just laugh. Of course. And it's not always the case. Some people are quite miserable, you know. Steve Martin used to be a cold fish. He himself admits it. He's written about it. When I first worked with him at SNL, even though I helped co-write a moment where we sang a song where he walked around the studio, not the other one where he did called Tonight I'm Not Gonna Phone It In.
Oh, okay.
I did one with him before about, I think it's just, I'm me. Anyway, we wrote it along with some other writers, but I never quite felt like did he look me in the eye? It turns out he was just that bizarre dichotomy of someone in show business who's shy. But he finally learned how to move past that. Now he's just so sweet, so warm, and and he's so witty. I had a lunch with him when we were working on Only Murders in the Building. Every single thing he said for 90 minutes was hysterical, witty. None of it pre-planned. It was just a conversation at lunch. Yeah, but Marty, Fred, Maya, and myself, we were a happy group. And had the best time. And then also it was so great to get to work with all these other musical characters from the show's history. Right. And to be part of like Choppin' Broccoli and that, what's up with that? I love that sketch from afar. And to get to be able to play I can't believe they don't do it anymore.
I know.
I love that sketch so much. A thrill. And Maya Rudolph is, so funny. Such a funny gal. Oh my God, her Star Spangled Banner that she did, I watched that endlessly. Or her Oprah giveaway when all the women are going insane. I can watch that endlessly and laugh hysterically every time.
It's brilliant.
What was a bigger thrill, that or the after party?
Nothing will ever come close to that after party for the 40th. Not even the 50th could come close to it. The show, the 50th, was fun and great. I was just a spectator. But that after party at the 40th, for whatever reason, once again, like that night with Bill Murray, Paul Schaefer wasn't there. I don't know why he wasn't at the 40th. And he's, Mr., when the jam session, as he's done at all the years of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, he was always, the band leader. Those jam sessions they used to have. So suddenly, we saw at the after party, there was a stage set up with instruments. And then all of a sudden, Paul McCartney and Taylor Swift and a few other musicians are up on stage. And no one's at the keyboard. And my husband, Lou, was like, get up there. I'm like, no, I'm not like the jam guy. I'm not. And isn't Paul Schaefer here? And then I realized he's not here. And Lou, my husband, is like, get the fuck up there. So I run on stage and I'm suddenly playing. I saw her standing there with Paul McCartney and Shake It Off was Taylor Swift's big hit that we did in Beatles-like fashion. And the weird thing, I talk about how I thought I was glowering when I was playing for Bill Murray. And if you watch it, I'm not quite glowering as much. I don't know what's with me, but I was playing for Paul McCartney and Taylor Swift. And the inside of my head is fireworks. Not just my head, my whole body is electricity and fireworks. But if you look, if there are videos, I'm just like this. Like someone should have told my face that we were having a good time. It's so weird. Then I was over gossiping with Martin Short when all of a sudden that's when Chappelle said to Jimmy, Prince is here. And Jimmy Fallon got on the mic. It's Prince, are you really here? And anyone who was there will tell you the crowd parted like the Red Sea. And this purple apparition. The lights were purple. If you see pictures of that night, they're at some of those parties, they really like purple lights. Anyway, it was perfect. Him and his all-girl band walked in. And I swear it looked like he must have been on roller skates because he seemed to float towards the stage. His body had no sense that his legs were moving and walking. He just floated to the stage and mounted the stage. And we do have a video of me running behind him to get back to the keyboard. where I got to play a 5-minute long version of Let's Go Crazy with Prince.
Wow.
And then the evening ended with the ultimate, where Lou and I were leaving. And as the greatest
part of the story
Jeopardy fan, there was Alex Trebek walking out of the Plaza Hotel with us. And we got to banter with Alex Trebek. Yeah, that's why I end the chapter with, in the form of a question, what is the greatest night of my life? Yeah.
That sounds like an amazing night to just have.
Anyone who was there, the biggest stars who were there would tell you this story in the same way of like, you'd never believe what this night was like. It was incredible.
That's amazing. You had a very special relationship with another extremely famous person for a very long time. Can you tell us about your relationship with Bette Midler?
That's just a long story. Yeah. But in my book and my audiobook, available wherever you purchase books,
yes,
and audiobooks, is my lifelong dream. When I was a little boy, I listened to Mary Poppins, and then puberty and Bette Midler records appeared in my life at the same time. And they're not related, but then I became a Bette Midler fanatic. And to make a very long story short, it's all in the book. Mm-hmm. This blessed fairy tale existence I had. And I met Bette Midler right away when I was still only 17, started working with her at 17. I was not working with her when she sang on SNL, Married Men, and she sang Operator Number Please, is Tom Waits' song, great song.
Martha, yeah. We were going to ask you about that if you were there.
Martha. No, I wasn't. That wasn't me. I was working with her at that time, but not always on the road as her piano player. That was the first record of hers I did work on, though, that album. And she's still one of my best friends. She's like my sister. She's like my older sister. And I'm on this book tour, and she just interviewed me at the Academy Museum on Friday. Like, who would have ever thought when I was 13 with Bette Midler posters on my wall that Bette Midler would interview me about my life at the Academy Museum.
Yeah, there's so many stories about Bette in the book. Actually, the book's dedicated to her, we should say. The book you dedicated to her.
Yeah, she's been such a big, huge part of my life through every high and low you can imagine.
Wanted to ask, we mentioned Martin Short. You said you worked with Billy Crystal a lot back in the day. You actually did the musical numbers with Billy for the Oscars, right?
Yes.
Through Billy, you met Rob Reiner. And we just wanted to ask, if you want to talk as little or as much as you want about your relationship with Rob and working with Rob. And
he was just the greatest. Bette Midler, Billy Crystal, and Rob Reiner are responsible for my film career. And it was Billy that introduced me to Rob when, Billy asked Rob, what are you going to do for the music for When Harry Met Sally? And Rob said, I need a guy who knows like every song for the American Songbook. And Billy was like, have I got a guy for you? That's when Billy would call me Rain Jew, because I was like Dustin Hoffman and Rain Man only songs. And instead of like counting sticks on the ground, I was like, oh, yeah, I know that song. Oh, yeah, Rodgers and Hart. Yeah, no, that's an A-flat chord. So I got the gig When Harry Met Sally and hit it off with Rob and learned how music is placed into a movie. And then he called to say, hey, buddy, my next movie is Misery. You want to score? It's a psychological thriller. I was like, well, yeah. But inside I was petrified. Like, why would he think I would know how to write psychological thriller music? If he had asked me to write like about vaudeville, I would understand why I'd be his guy. But like, but I had no choice but to live up to his faith in me. He said to my agent who I had just gotten, had to call Rob then and negotiate. And my own agent said to Rob, why do you think Marc can do this? And Rob said, Richard, talent is talent. And Rob just had faith in his own viewpoints, and he thought I could do it. And so I had to do it. I wasn't going to let him down. And then led to just that brilliant run of movies where every genre was different. And I got to do, you know, A Few Good Men, Misery. I was writing Misery. But like these other, you know, incredibly strange Hitchcockian Bernard Herrmann bizarre chords as she's slamming the bed down. And I was living at the time in a rental house up in Laurel Canyon at the end of a dirt road that was already spooky. And people used to always go there to walk their dogs. And I had my windows open. It was hot, and I had my windows open. And she's yelling, you cock-a-doodie! And I used to wonder what the people walking their dogs must have thought. What the fuck is going on? Anyway, yeah, Rob was the greatest and meant the world to me. And to, you know, I was nominated for the American president due to his faith in me. And I still can't really wrap my head around what's happened. I haven't properly grieved because I just can't believe it still. I've grieved a little. Every now and then it comes out. I mean, I played the theme to the American president on a video they were making for the New York Times, was doing a thing on me. And I'm happy it happened. It happened in front of a room full of strangers. But when I played the whole theme, and when I got to the end of it, it just, hitting the final chord just kind of triggered the final finality of what has happened. And I had my first absolute sob fest in front of all these strangers, where it started really dawning on me, yes, this really happened. I mean, I watched like the Mel Brooks documentary, and when he came on, I didn't even go, oh, Rob. I was just like, oh, there's Rob. It's Rob talking about it, because it's just hard for the human brain and heart to really believe what's happened has happened. And Michelle, his wife, the greatest broad that ever walked the face of the earth. So ballsy and didn't take shit from anybody. And Rob and Michelle were so much a part of the fight for same-sex marriage right up to the Supreme Court. They were part of all the legality and fighting for that. And so not only did Rob Reiner give me a movie career and a friendship for the ages, but I'm a very happily married man, and Rob and Michelle are very much responsible for that as well. So I could talk about Rob forever and ever, and will.
Yeah, I love that talent is talent story in the book. It just speaks a lot to who he is and the kind of guy he is when he, you know, backing you up with that simple line, talent is talent. Marc, I feel like we barely scratched the surface of what's in the book. If you have real quick, what would you say might be the most bizarre story or anecdote that people might be surprised to learn or read about when they read the book?
Well, there's my Sondheim story of smoking a joint with Stephen Sondheim and what happened there. I don't like to tell that story like it's a party trick.
You can leave it like that. You got to get the book.
I wrote it in the book, so I'm a big old fat hypocrite. But because in the book, I can really, you know, act it out, so to speak, through words. But, you know, I'll entice your listeners that they can hear about the time I smoked a joint with Stephen Sondheim and had a moment so unlike when he died, and everyone was writing the most beautiful stories about the mentorship and what he, you know, what he meant to us all, but also who he was as a person and how he helped so many people and would write people back long stories or help them. And my story is like a total farce, like it's out of a farce. Perfect for Sondheim. Don't you love farce? My fault, I fear. So, and then, I don't know. There's that bizarre story I tell when we were down on our luck and had to create a cabaret act for a woman and her mobster boyfriend. And when they wouldn't pay for the charts, came over, and we literally two gay guys fighting this actress who you might know if I said her name, which I don't, who was like on Star Trek. She was like a B movie actress. And her mobster boyfriend named Tommy, who was really clearly a mobster. But we were so down on our luck, and they wouldn't pay for the charts, and we're fighting for the charts, and they ran off with them, and Scott and I ran into this bar that was across the street from us where garbage men frequent, and we were like, help us, we're being robbed. And so they came out and helped us try to stop the car, and I had my hand on the car, and they sped off, and I'm weeping in the middle of the street as these garbage men are like, what the fuck is going on? Anyway, it's a story better told in the book. But there was, it's the same bizarre stories we all have in our own life. I mean, that's the point of the book. It's all show business for the most part, but we all have these stories, and we all have these ups and downs. I never realized when writing the book that I was writing an inspirational book. They could place it now in like that self-help section, because it is only by talking about the book do I realize, all this shit just happened to me, and it happened because I kept showing up and saying yes and not taking no for an answer. And so there is something to learn there for people. That's the only thing I can tell when people ask, how can I do what you've done? I said, well, you have to meet someone when you're 16 who lives across the hall from one of Bette Midler's backup singers. So you meet one of Bette Midler's. I mean, you can't logistically recreate what I did, but I kept showing up. I kept saying yes, and things happened, and they continue to happen. I myself am agog when I keep telling these stories that I tell now, that all this happened to me.
You've had an amazing career.
Just think of that number at the 40th anniversary to get just the people who were on that stage in that 10 minutes. I mean, who could ask for anything more? Who could ask for anything more?
I feel there's not a better place to end it than that.
I don't think so.
Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for asking. Thanks for having me.
The book is excellent. Folks can find it anywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Stop me on the street and I'll tell you it all. But never mind the happy. Showbiz Stories from a Sore Winner.
Sneak down to Barnes & Noble in Manhattan. You might find a signed copy.
Yes, please do. Oh, yeah. I've been doing that.
Mark, thank you so much for your time. This was
thanks, guys.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
okay, and I can't wait to catch up on all your other episodes. I can't wait.
Thank you. That was an amazing conversation with Marc Shaiman.
Oh my God.
He's a character. It's great.
Seriously, I feel like we barely scratched the surface of what's in this book. It's so good. There's stories about the Rocky Horror Picture Show he didn't even mention. So much about Bette Midler. We didn't even bring up the iconic Johnny Carson's final guest story. So there's so much more in this book.
A lot to dive into, to get into. I think I might get the audio version, because if Mark's the one reading it, I think I'd enjoy that.
Oh my God, yeah. He's such so much fun. He's such a storyteller. So thanks again to Marc Shaiman for joining us. The book, Never Mind the Happy, Showbiz Stories from a Sore Winner. South Park movie, there's so much more to talk about. Go read the book.
Yeah,
there's so much.
Thanks for listening. Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the Not Ready for Primetime Project. Please remember to rate and review and follow us on social media everywhere at NR4PT Project. The Not Ready for Primetime Project team is Brad Robinson and Gary Seif. Our editor is Will Bond, who hosts his own podcast with his brothers, Reviewing Doctor Who, which you can find wherever you're listening to this. Thanks for listening. Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Brad, why do you do this? Do you do this to hurt us?